Ronald Acuna Jr. Yep. And I'm getting this out a little bit late, but let's talk about it. Welcome back to the Touching Bases podcast and the studio. I mean, we're back. We're back home. We finally made it. I figured I'd rock some All-Star 2023 farm worker hat, whatever you want to call this. On top of that, shout out to Albert. I appreciate you, man. When I was over on the East Coast for work, he picked up a 1931 McGregor catcher's mask right there. I don't know if you guys can see that. That's pretty awesome. Found it in a thrift store. So I figured, yeah, you know what? We'll add it to our studio, make it something special. 1931. That's wild. If you're new here, thanks for joining me and a little community that we're starting to build here. And if you're returning, I mean, let me know down below so I can maintain familiar faces in this small little brain of mine and can get to know you guys a little bit more. Ronald Acuna Jr. is out. Tore his ACL and trying to return back to second base after a pitch in the dirt. And yes, you are correct. Acuna did have a knee injury in spring training and was writing on the wall. Maybe, but let's be clear. This is the left knee. In 2021, he also had an ACL that he tore, and that was his right knee. Knees just suck. I'm getting close to 30. Yes, my right knee is acting a little bit sassy, if you will, little pops and cracks, and I don't really like it. And I'm pretty damn concerned myself, especially since the best player in the National League arguably just tore his ACL. All he did was turn around really quick. Now, an ACL tear usually takes about 6 to 9 months to recover from. I mean, for a competitive athlete, that might be a little bit longer just so they can fully heal. I mean, it really depends on the doctor, but still 6 to 9 months. He's not going to be back for this season, almost guaranteed. And then on top of that, he might not be back until a couple months into next season, which really sucks for the 2025 year. And it sucks for the Braves because they just lost their best outfielder. I feel bad for him. After coming off of an MVP season and surpassing the 40-70 mark with a 41 home runs and 73 stolen bases while batting at .336 and slugging at .596, he ended last season with 170 WRC plus. If that doesn't scream MVP, I don't know what does, but he won it deservedly. Now, at the beginning of the season, it was telling that the knee was probably actually bothering him and giving him some issues, just because with only 4 home runs and 17 stolen bases while we are now in the second month of the season. On top of that, last season, he only struck out 11% of the time, and this season, that number has skyrocketed to over 23%. Last season, after 100 games, he had stolen 48 stolen bases, and this year, being the 49th game, which was the last game he played, he was barely skimming 17. Now, one bad twist of motion, now he's done. And it really sucks because I am a fan of Acuna, and I really wanted to see him try to win back-to-back MVPs this year, especially for the National League. So what do the Braves do? With the trade deadline coming up, I mean, we're only like a couple months away. There are plenty of rumors for replacing him. Many teams have been in the talks with the Marlins about liquidating their team, with Jazz Chisholm maybe on the hot list for being traded. And honestly, that might be a cheap way to replace Ronald. Don't get me wrong, Jazz is nothing compared to Ronald, but he is putting up really good numbers in Miami, and moving over to Atlanta might be a good fit, especially since Atlanta could probably afford him. But with other teams looking at Jazz, I kind of highly doubt that they're probably gonna be the ones to pick him up, since there are some other options out there, including the not so hot but proven himself in his entire career. He's the winning AL Rookie of the Year and became the face of the Rays, Randy Arozarena. Now, if I was Tampa, I wouldn't trade him away, but poor performance this year compared to any other year he's played, and his contract ending this season, and it's basically just an extension. They signed him to like a 1-year deal out of arbitration, and that's an $8.1 million deal, which I don't know if the Braves want to spend that much, but they probably can make it happen. But it is only a 1-year rental, so I don't know if that's worth it. Technically, it's half a year rental. The Rays may want to get some prospects from a very good Atlanta team instead of pulling an Angels faceplant and just lose their best player. Let's be clear, Rays never really fork up big money, and finding cheap talent that gets them to the playoffs is kind of their normal strategy, and keeping Randy doesn't really fit their MO. I would offer him a franchise contract, even though he hasn't played his best year so far, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's just not the Rays' way of thinking, and I think the Braves know it. So there's a chance there. On the other end, there's a chance that the Braves do absolutely nothing. Like, they have Kelenic, they have Duran, they have Michael Harris, they have outfield depth. Like, they can pull this off without having Ronald Acuna Jr. in there, and maybe giving more reps to Kelenic. Maybe he'll wake up a little bit. He had a hot start to the season, but once again, his strikeout rates are extremely high, and Duran seems to be proving himself. Now, with them platooning over, I believe, in left field majority of the time, I would see no problem with giving them a full-time run, since since Acuna is out until they figure out something or see what happens. Maybe buy them some time to negotiate if they felt the need to make a trade. Given that they are still pretty hot, they're not, performing great because they've lost two of their best players, being Spencer Strider and now Ronald Acuna Jr. I mean, I guess it's kind of like, see how they do without him? I mean, that is an option that the Braves can do. Side note, another thing, and this might even, it's not going to be popular, but Luis Robert Jr. with the White Sox. Now, I understand he's been out with a hip flexor injury, and he's due back to be on the field probably next week or in 2 weeks from now. And he obviously hasn't had a chance to play this season. So, I mean, there is a risk there. But looking at Robert Jr. and looking at the White Sox, like they are literally the worst team in baseball right now. So why would they not take the opportunity from a team that has really good depth as far as their prospects go and as far as their team in different positions? Maybe make a deal to where they can get Robert Jr. I think that he would be a high enough caliber, much better than Jazz Chisholm, but I don't know if Robert's going to be 100% when he comes back. This is all kind of like speculation. I mean, honestly, I'm hoping Robert plays good because he's on my fantasy, but that's more personal reasons. But maybe there's a chance, since the White Sox are kind of selling everybody off, they are clearly not looking at a playoff opportunity this season. Maybe they can capitalize and push their last big guy out the door and bring in some really good quality players that the Braves aren't even using. There's a possibility there. With all other outfield deals that could happen, those are kind of like the 3 or 4 things that I feel like might be realistic, but the Braves make some shenanigans happen, and this would be very reasonable as a drawing board stand, at least in my opinion. But let me know in the comments who Atlanta should get. Like the video if Jazz or Randy or who you want to see get acquired, and subscribe if you disagree completely but wish Acuna Jr. a speedy recovery. If you don't subscribe, then you must want him to never play baseball again. Don't do that. I'll catch you beautiful people in the next one. See ya.